Welcome, Actastic listeners, to a new horizon of the Accelerate podcast, where the seeds of today's conversations bloom into the agricultural revolutions of tomorrow. I'm Sujit J, your navigator through this evolving world of digital technologies in agriculture. Today, we stand at the crossroads of innovation and tradition, exploring a theme that is as groundbreaking as it is essential: harnessing digital measurement, reporting, and verification, or popularly known as dMRV, for a transparent and sustainable agriculture value chain. In this era where data is the new soil and technology is the new tool, agriculture is undergoing a metamorphosis driven by digital advancements. Our focus today is not just on the cultivation of crops, but on the cultivation of sustainability and transparency in the agriculture value chain. And joining us today in this thought provoking journey is a visionary in the field, Frank Terhorst, Head of Strategy and Sustainability, Crop Science from Bayer. His expertise in melding strategy with sustainability has been pivotal in redefining the contours of modern agriculture. Together, we intend to unravel the intricacies of digital measurement, reporting, and verification, a concept reshaping how we perceive, interact with, and advance in agriculture. So, as the world grapples with the challenges of feeding a growing population and preserving our planet, let's dive into this conversation that promises to illuminate, inspire, and ignite some change, if that's possible. Listeners, prepare to be accelerated today. Welcome, Frank. Such a pleasure to have you join us today. And I would like to dive straight into our conversation. Say a welcome to all our audience on the other side.
Thanks, Sujit. Thanks for having me here on the show. Thank you.
Great. Let's dive straight in. And Frank, I wanted to start with probably what is really essential to understand this topic better, that the agriculture sector is on the cusp of a digital revolution, very much like what the tech space has been in the past decade. As we speak, dMRV and how it is transforming, how we view and approach sustainability in agriculture, where dMRV really enables sustainability in agriculture. Could you start by giving us an overview of this transformative concept? While it is not new, but it definitely is driving transformation, and how critical it is to achieve the sustainability goals that this sector is probably assigning to achieve over the next few years and decades.
Yeah, thanks, Sujit. It is crystal clear for me, for us, that there is an urgent need for agriculture to transform, given all the challenges around us, such as climate change, increasingly stressed ecosystem, but of course also still a growing population. So we need to combine actually all of our efforts to serve multiple goals, both on the food security side, but also on protecting the planet. So the concepts that we have developed in Bayer is our belief that we need to produce more with less, while also restoring more. So that is our vision of regenerative agriculture. So what does this concretely mean? Producing more means still increasing yields on existing land to meet the rising food demand, to save actually precious land, but also to enhance the livelihood of those who produce our food, farmers and growers around the globe, big and small. With less means applying less fertilizer, applying less crop protection. So in some using less land, water, and other natural resources. And the new concept for us is that we believe there's also room to restore more, meaning giving back to nature through soil-friendly practices, through carbon sequestration, but also biodiversity protection. But for this to be successful, we need to integrate the whole agri-food value chain from seed development to the plate. And this is where MRV comes into play. Other participants in the value chain will only accept and foster these concepts if they know they are reliable, they are data-driven, they are trustful. And the technology that will enable us to do so is, of course, digital. And that's why we are now, I think, in a new area and can make this happen. So the basis for all of this will be innovation and technology.
And I love the point on restoration that you added to the whole conversation. While a lot of it has been focused on doing more with less, but also being able to restore and give back to nature, I think that is going to be critical as we keep on scaling the need to be able to grow more food, as we have more mouths to feed on this planet, as well as ensuring there is nutritious food, while ensuring there is less and less of the inputs, especially chemicals and fertilizers that we probably add into the food value chain. And I would want to also double click on the fact that the verifiability, the ability to use data to see what's working, what's not working, is critical. That's another point that you really highlighted. And thank you for those insights, Frank. And to put this in perspective for our listeners, a recent study suggests that adopting digital solutions in agriculture can increase the global crop yield by 67% by 2050. This is not just about efficiency, it's also about feeding the growing population sustainability. Now, Frank, I would like to double click on how Bayer is really leveraging technology to meet these sustainability goals.
Yeah, thanks. And maybe this is a good time to dive into a couple of examples, right? Because every single step actually of our value chain is already infused with technology, and I would expect even more so in a few years from now. So let me maybe take you a little bit on a journey through our innovation process. So already in seed development, we are using artificial intelligence and advanced analytics to find plants that will contribute to our concept of regenerative agriculture, as earlier described. So we want them, for instance, to generate higher yields as in the past, but also to need less fertilizer and to cope better with climate change. And digital helps us to make these development cycles quicker, which is paramount given actually the urgency of the challenges ahead, because climate change is impacting a lot the environment for seeds. In crop protection development, actually we have created a complete new way to find best active ingredients, making use of digital. Instead of trial and error, as you know, during the past 100 years, as our approach to find new molecules, we now design them through artificial intelligence to meet the desired outcome and incorporate sustainability criteria right from the start. So it's just like designing a key to a lock, and that's why we call this crop key. One result of this approach, a very targeted approach, is a broad spectrum herbicide that has a new mode of action, the first actually in more than 30 years, to be launched by the end of this decade. So it will have very favorable environmental profiles because it only actually acts as a certain protein in the target weeds. And maybe lastly, on the field, we provide farmers with digital technology that help them to get the best out of their field data. Our digital platform, FieldView, utilizes data science, machine learning to help create an easy-to-use data visualization and analysis tools, giving farmer a deeper understanding of what's happening on their field. So this is also the basis of trustworthy carbon farming and also MRV down the value chain, because we need that platform actually to capture what's on the field and then channel it through the entire value chain to also capture value. And maybe one last example here is our partnership with Microsoft to support data interoperability. right? Because we need to make systems and platforms to speak with each other, and it's very costly if you do this in a bilateral way. So we think there is an opportunity to improve transparency across the entire agricultural value chain and accelerate farm and food innovation by actually connecting all of them to a cloud-based solution. Again, a couple of examples here to illustrate how we think and how broad we think about MLV being the basis to connect the value chain.
And I think, Frank, amazing. I picked up a few points that are pretty interesting. One is you are bringing in advanced technologies like AML right at the beginning of the value chain, which is building better input products, be it at the seed level or be it at crop protection level, that could reduce the impact on climate and the environment or resources in general. I think that was great. And the other point that I picked up from your narrative right now was the fact that it is critical to really break down the data silos to be able to bring the overall ecosystem players in the value chain together. So there is a democratization of access to this data and information. So every stakeholder, right from the grower to every other stakeholder in the value chain, is also able to use it to keep on improving how they could contribute towards the sustainability goals of, in this case, a player like Bayer. But I'm sure this can be a great learning experience for any other player who have similar value chains. And I think that is critical, breaking down data silos. If you truly want to look at dMRV as a holistic concept that needs to be deployed for long-term impact. Now, obviously, as players like Bayer implement this overall framework within their organizations, the end goal is to really be able to achieve sustainability goals. And one important outcome is also being able to certify some of the outcome and the impact that is being generated as a result of these initiatives. Now, and that's where understanding the role of sustainability certifications in agriculture is critical. And these are not just badges of honor; they are benchmarks of progress. In your view, Frank, how do these certifications impact the industry, especially considering the challenges in auditing and validation that we all know that the industry is still grappling with, and we're still trying to solve for that, especially at scale, considering the extremities that we have from large farm holding patterns in certain markets to small holding farmer patterns in other markets. It is definitely a challenge that we're still grappling with. So, what's your view on this? How do we really see certifications impact, and how do we address some of these challenges as we keep moving forward?
Yeah, Sujit, I fully agree with you. Certifications are critical, but it's also critical that they will become easier to use and actually create value also for farmers and growers. I mean, there is certainly no lack today of certifications, but where at least some of these certifications fail is that they put all the burden on growers and farmers around the world, and they are not really creating additional and new demand and new value that then can be distributed along the value chain. So this is why I think the industry needs robust systems that interact easily with each other to gain trust of stakeholders, customers, and ultimately, of course, consumers globally. So are we there yet? Definitely no. But I think with the evolution of digital science and also digital availability in agriculture, in the food chain, I'm confident that we are now on a good way. For example, the platform we are using, FieldView, already covers today more than 220 million acres in over 20 countries. So the breadth and depth of this data and the foundation, but also the emerging power of artificial intelligence will help here to analyze data and actually also feed into potential certification systems to actually connect that part of the value chain with the downstream part. Of course, we then also need to really have very clear and reliable targets that, let's say, feed into consumer expectations and are part of then the MRV process leading to a certification. So one other examples where we are right now actually executing on one of our sustainability commitments is our approach to meet our goal to reduce the environmental impact of crop protection products by 30% in 2030. So we know that for us and our stakeholders, it is important here that we walk the talk and measure progress and also have data to show how we do it. And this is why we had an external academia also helping here to develop a scientifically derived approach to reach and also measure this goal. And I think that's what I mean, that these processes need to be data driven, right? They don't they shouldn't be marketing driven, but they need to be data driven to really instill trust and reliability in the process. And again, digital MAV is actually the foundation for us to show that and also to certify that along the value chain.
And you highlighted a very critical component in this part of our chat, Frank, and this is about the economic aspect, the impact that it can unlock. And you also highlighted the fact that it is critical that the transparency and visibility that a properly deployed sustainable program with dMRV at its core should be able to unlock value for the grower or farmer. Till now, it seems like it's more a burden for that grower and farmer, but doesn't seem that there are enough instances of value being unlocked for the grower or farmer through incentives and the ability to build more sustainable livelihoods as we keep on trying to get more out of our entire global food value chain. Now, a recent report indicates that sustainable farming practices can increase a farm's profitability by up to 78%. Frank, how do you see the economic viability of regenerative and sustainable practices, both from a grower's perspective and a business's perspective?
Yeah, very clearly, regenerative agriculture, regenerative practices need to create more value for everyone in the chain. It's I just recently had a discussion with a farmer, and he told me it's hard to be green if you are in the red. These regenerative practices again need to create value in particular for farmers, and that's also why in our definition of regenerative agriculture, productivity is a key aspect, and also actually the economic well-being of farmers and growers, but also their communities is a central element. And that's why I believe there's great potential. I talked a little bit about this. I think if we are able to create and bring these thoughts together, we are able to create value. But this also means that some of the traditional paths might be, reshaped and lead into new fields. We talked a little bit about the new adjacent spaces for us where we want to move in, which I think will be critical to create new solutions for farmers. These additional fields are, for instance, in the area of crop fertility, into biological products, biofuels, carbon farming, but also precision application services, as well as digital platforms and marketplaces. And these are important elements that we are right now investing into and create and move into a larger market. So this is important for us also because I like to think about sustainability strategy as a business strategy. But Also, for farmers, this is important and I think good news. And let me give you one example. We just 4 weeks ago basically launched our ambition on the International Rice Congress in Manila to actually transform the rice production in Asia Pacific by helping farmers to move from transplanted rice towards direct seeded rice. And this change of the economic system is a very important one. But if we are able to do that and help farmers on scale, there are significant economic but also sustainability benefits from it. As we know, rice production is the most important, let's say, water intense crop in the world. By moving from transplanted rice to direct seeded rice, we will be able to actually reduce water usage by more than 45%. We'll be able to reduce methane and greenhouse gas emission by almost 50%, and will actually also help farmers to become more efficient, so significantly drive their bottom line and their business. So there's actually, I think here it's a great example where sustainability can create and new solutions can create significant business opportunities for farmers, but also help them concretely to improve their bottom line.
Thank you, Frank, and thank you for sharing that example. And I think it is great that brands and organizations like Bayer that are operating in the value chain are constantly looking at creating more sustainable programs that help ideas of what future could look like are real on the ground and show impact, and thus bringing belief in the overall ecosystem that this change can be brought about. And I think making those investments, those commitments, and driving some of those innovations on ground by programmatically running that is super critical. So thank you for that example, and for running that on behalf of everyone else in the agricultural ecosystem. Now, I want to get to what the future could look like, right? And we all know that it's not just about producing more, but producing better. And so, as we wrap up this conversation, Frank, I know this is still a very limited time and space between two individuals having this chat, but what could be the emerging trends or innovations in sustainable agriculture that excite you the most? And what role do you see Bayer playing in this future?
Yeah, there are many, and of course, agriculture, has always changed. I mean, I'm working in agriculture for almost 30 years, but what we right now seeing is clearly an acceleration in two areas. One, not new, but really now getting traction, is the digital transformation of agriculture. So it starts, and I talked about this in the development process of products, but if we now basically have technology in the fields almost everywhere, we have drones, we have precision application, we have digital platforms that help farmers to be a lot more targeted in their application, but actually creates tons of data that will help them to make better decisions. The other very important area is and are advancements in biological life sciences. And maybe 25 years back, we have seen the formerly very separated markets of seeds and crop protection moving together through biotechnology. And I think now we see that some of these advancements in biological life sciences actually also bring some formerly separated market closer together, such as nutrition on the one hand side and crop protection. Right? We have product models that actually do both, and with that, I think, create new opportunities, make and will make agriculture more biological, with new and more holistic solutions, which allows then and will allow farmers to tap into some of these sustainability value pools we talked about earlier. So I think some of the barriers between different agricultural disciplines are right now being torn down, and these innovations will actually disrupt some of the very traditional and old segments, and that's why, of course, Bayer is currently shifting investments into digital, into more biological solutions, because we truly believe that actually not only will these technologies, this new product concept, be able to replace some of the others, but again, they have the potential to create more value in the entire value chain, and in particular for growers and farmers.
That is another interesting point, Frank. So I'm summarizing some of these inputs that you're sharing as we go through our chat, and not just building visibility, transparency, and thus breaking data silos in the value chain of production, but also pre-production, which is the biotech piece. And again, if there is a core dMRV in place, it enables not just advancements at the biotech level, so that we can make what we are going to probably input into the production value chain biologically a lot more viable, thus reducing the impact down the value chain, but also be able to bring data back from the value chain to this pre-production part of the entire cycle. So I think those were critical. And as we bring today's enlightening conversation to a close, I would like to quickly reflect on our conversation with Frank. Today, we have not just talked about agriculture, we have ventured into sustainable transformation powered by digital innovation. And like just the last point that Frank mentioned, not just the production value chain, but even the pre-production value chain, where there is a lot of R&D that investments that need to be made. And I think digitally enabling that entire value chain is going to be super critical for future impact that is also feasible and viable in the long run. Frank, your insights on dMRV highlight a pivotal shift in agriculture sustainability. And it's fascinating to learn how, with Bayer's initiatives, this technology is not just a concept, but a living reality on farms. And you give the example of the program that you're running in Asia Pacific. For instance, integrating drones, IoT, AI in R&D, crop monitoring, as seen in Bayer's digital farming solutions value chain, is definitely exciting. And how we approach sustainability could be actually referenced from these examples. It also echoes the findings from the World Economic Forum, which estimated a potential increase of 70% in food production by 2050 through digital agriculture. Also, as you mentioned, the role of sustainability certifications is transforming the industry, but it should be driven by data that measures the impact and not just driven by the need for certifications. And we are definitely seeing a more transparent and accountable agriculture sector with stricter auditing processes and enabled by technology. This shift is crucial, as the Food and Agriculture Organization of UN clearly highlights the urgent need for sustainable practices to feed a projected 9.7 billion people by 2050. Also, your perspective on the economic viability of sustainable practices, especially to unlock value for the growers, sheds light on an often overlooked aspect of agriculture. The move towards sustainable practices isn't just an environmental need and an economic opportunity. For instance, the case of the Rodale Institute's farming systems trial shows that organic farming systems are more profitable than conventional farming systems. And by enabling regenerative ag practices, etc., anywhere between 3 to 6 times of profitability or productivity can be improved, even considering the transition period into account when these kind of changes are being made real. And as we look into the horizon, I loved your excitement about emerging trends and innovations in agriculture. The future you envision, and what Bayer is envisioning, where technology and ecological mindfulness walk hand in hand, is definitely inspiring. I'm sure it inspires the audience who logs in for this one, and everyone else who probably consume this this particular chat as we make this available to the larger audience. And I love Bayer's commitment to this particular future, especially by running programs yourself through several initiatives and setting a precedent for the global agriculture community to really follow. In sum, today's discussion really reiterated that the future of agriculture is rooted in technology-driven sustainability. It's a future where feeding the world and nurturing the planet are not conflicting goals, but synchronized objectives. Thank you, Frank, for sharing your invaluable insights with us. And to our listeners, this conversation is just the beginning. The field of agriculture is ripe with innovation and opportunity. As we continue to explore and embrace these advancements, remember that every seed of change we sow today is a step towards a more sustainable and prosperous tomorrow. Frank, thanks a ton for your time today. We would love to have you again soon.
Thanks for having me.